All right, welcome everybody. I'm recording. Good. All right, so welcome to our GDG Cloud Montreal Q1. Like we're really like pushing it like 2 days at the end of Q1 before we're doing our event, but super happy to have everybody joining us. I'm just gonna share my slide quickly before we go. Just before I do that, just want to make sure that on Nicolas and Mathieu's side, I see that you should be able to share the screen at the bottom. It's only one at a time, so and audio should work properly. So I think Nicolas, I've
Yeah,
heard
it
you.
does.
Yep, perfect.
Hey everyone.
All right, cool, excellent. So let me just share my slide so we can get going. All right. So too many tabs open. All right. Big reminder for me to record because it might be useful for people who are not able to attend. So let's get going. All right. So welcome to our containerized artifact. And signature verification and FinOps on GCP. It's a long one, and it's maybe a bit of a niche one. But to Mathieu's point, he was asking me like which one is sweet, which one is sour. I'll say the containerized artifact signature verification is sweet. Sorry, Nicholas. So we'll go on the sour one for everything that's like covering money. So, but yeah. So we'll get going. So today's agenda. You meet our speakers. I'm gonna cover how to ask questions during the events. And then we'll have our presentation. So I'm Stacy Verano, Senior Pre-Sales Cloud Engineer at SADA, and leader of the GDG Cloud Montreal meetup. With me, and I'll let them intro themselves properly when they hit their section. I'll have like Mathieu Benoit, who's a DevRel engineer, GKE Entos, and newly appointed like cloud native ambassador. It's like that's super awesome. So like big congrats. Uh, Also, like I think you'll have to update your picture based on the season. So the next one, well, the goggles. And also with me I have Nicolas Fadley, who's also like is a cloud customer engineer at Google. So Mathieu is based in Quebec City. I'm based in like Mont Saint Grégoire / Montreal to keep it easy, and so does Nicolas. So all right. So quick thing on how to ask questions during the event. Like on the right side where you have like the chat section, you'll see a little Q&A. And Mathieu already hijacked it with question, which is great. He wanted to have like a survey-like feature. So if you can have a look there, you're able to either like answer live or reply or give a +1. So it's a great way to have Q&A. We'll also monitor that thread during the event. So, and without further ado, then I'll just pass it on to Mathieu, who's gonna talk about containerized artifact signature verification. So, gonna talk about like Sigstore Cosign with GKE, artifact registry, and KMS. A award-winning blog post now converted into a live demo. So awesome. So I'll stop sharing and I'll pass it on to you.
Sorry about that. Let me find everything and all the screens.
No problem.
Sharing my screen. Here we are. Let me know if you see my screen properly. Like big screen.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. And Stacy, feel free to interrupt if you see any live question or anything, I don't know, not going well during the flow of this presentation. Hey, everyone.
No.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Mathieu Benoit. Thanks for having me as a community and Stacy for the invitation. We will talk about container image and OCI images. I will explain what the difference is. Signature and how you could add more security within your pipeline when you deploy application in GKE or in any Kubernetes cluster. I'm based in Quebec City, like Stacy mentioned. I'm very passionate about Kubernetes, and I'm sharing a lot of learning I'm doing. Stacy reached out 2 months ago maybe and said, hey, look, there is this blog article you just released, and it seems a popular topic out there. And indeed it is. I was at Detroit during KubeCon North America 2022 in October, last October. And I was amazed about the community around Sigstore and Cosign and container signature, if I could say, or what we could call security software supply chain, right? So it's based on this blog article where I learned some stuff about using Sigstore on a corporate environment, right? I will explain a little bit better about that, but it's with GKE, with artifact registry and cloud KMS. So hope you will enjoy this talk. A bit technical, but I would love to see your feedback on this talk. And I dropped some questions in the Q&A section. 3 questions actually, if I recall correct, or 4. And the goal is to thumbs up on the question if you are using, for example, binary authorization, if you are using a policy engine like Gatekeeper, policy controller with CentOS config management, Kyverno, Connoisseur, or other. And if you're using a GitOps tool to deploy your container in GKE, if you are doing that, and if possible, if it's in production. And we are seeing some people from Toronto. Hey, Daniel. That's great to see. Cool. So let's continue this flow. Software supply chain could be kind of summarized on this different box and flow, right? You have a developer, you have a source code, you could build based on dependencies and generate your package, right? And there is a consumer. Maybe that's you, maybe that's external, internal, customer, consumer, using your package. It could be a package for programming languages like .NET, Java, Python, Golang, etc. But it could be also part of this talk today, a container, right? A package, it's very an artifact that someone could leverage and build upon something or leverage as is, right? But what if here at the very consumer part end, you think you are using this artifact, this package from the right place, right? So yeah, no problem could happen here. But what about if the owner account were compromised? It could be the account doing the build, doing the packaging, grabbing the source. So that's where security software supply chain is very important, and where you could see later A to E, where someone could hijack and hack your system, right? Your build system. So as a consumer, you are consuming a package, an artifact, but actually behind the scene, there is a lot of guardrail and security guardrails to have in place to make sure there is security integrity, right? And that's all about this topic about zero trust for software supply chain. I put a link, salsa.dev. That's where you could find this beautiful diagram and the explanation around all of that. And they are guiding people. Do you want to make sure you are following best practices for security perspective? Do you want to be salsa level 1 or level 4? And what we could see with this table on the very right bottom, it's how you could achieve salsa level 4. And there is this notion of provenance, right? Where my package artifact is coming from, and is it the right one? Is it the one that the owner wanted to share with me, with the outside world, or internal to a corporate, right, environment. So that's very key here. And Sigstore is bringing great, interesting things here for open source project. You remember in this software supply chain, there is dependencies. We are all using a lot of open source project out there. And how we could guarantee that this package, Golang package, Python package, whatever, is originally from the owner again, right? So Sigstore is helping on making sure when I use something, I could verify with a signature that it's a secure artifact that I'm using, right? And Sigstore is as a tool set, like a combination of different tools to sign your code, verify your signature, monitor activities, right? And actually, when I mentioned signing code, there is built-in and out-of-the-box support for programming languages like Go, Python, Ruby, Java, Rust, and others are coming. And on a more generic way, you could also sign your Git commit, your container image, your end chart, your OCI image, right? So that's very and pretty convenient. So today, like I mentioned, it's about using Sigstore ecosystem and bringing that on a corporate environment with GKE. We will see how you could sign a container image and verify the signature at admission control within your GKE cluster, right? Kubernetes cluster. And we will verify, we will illustrate with two tools, Sigstore Policy Controller, one of the tools from Sigstore ecosystem, and Kyverno, if you're familiar with this policy engine. Later, we will see and discuss about other capabilities, how you could sign an end chart and verify the signature. We will use Flux for that, and I will explain why. And on a more generic way, I don't know if you're familiar with OCI. I have mentioned that a couple of times since the beginning of this talk. OCI stands for Open Container Initiative, right? Think about that, about a container image, not just for Docker container image, but for anything, right? At the end of the day, a Docker file, Docker image, sorry, is a tar, right? An archive of files, of layers. That's the same for OCI. OCI is a standard from the Linux Foundation, and they're trying to make sure that there is standard interface specification defining what could be an OCI artifact, image, and even an OCI registry. So if you're using GitHub registry, Docker Hub, you're using Google Artifact Registry, they are compliant with OCI registry. What does that mean? You could store anything in there, not just Docker images, right? So that's pretty convenient and popular. How to sign, what's the flow for a container image? So let's start with the container image, right? And I push my container in my Google Artifact Registry, in my case, Docker push, first command line. The second one is using Cosign, right? And it's one of the tools for from the Sigstore ecosystem. And here, second line, you generate a key pair, right? You will have a public key and a private key. And the third command line is about signing my container image in my Google Artifact Registry. So I'm authenticated over there, and I'm using the private key, right? Dash key, and I could sign this container image, right? On the other hand, I could verify at any point, wherever I want, with this command, cosign verify with a public key. So in open source project, you will share this public key, right? And you could verify, is this container signed previously with this key, right? So that's pretty simple, but yet powerful, right? So here again, Sigstore is interacting with Google Artifact Registry. There is all the airbag, IAM, and identity authentication authorization in place that I haven't illustrated in this command line, but that's a secure way to connect and sign a container image within your Google Artifact Registry. So if we look quickly at the Cloud Console, right, you could see two entries with this command line, Docker push and cosign sign, right? The second line is my actual container image, right? With the tag latest. That's my container image, right? And you see that Cosign sign just added a second entry. And you could see on the tag, there is a .sig at the end as a suffix of this tag, right? And that's how Cosign currently is adding the signature in your registry, and how you could verify as well with this workflow. So you have your image and you have a second entry, which is the actual signature within your container registry, right? Now, what I want to show you is, again, on a corporate environment, maybe you don't want to manage your public key and private key, right? Locally, or store them somewhere, right? So one of the very convenient way to do that is to leverage Cloud KMS within Google Cloud, right? Again, if you see, I have configured my key ring and my key within my Cloud KMS. And second line, Cosign generate key pair -- KMS. That's where now Cosign will generate the keys within the Cloud KMS, so within my secure environment, corporate environment, right? Here I could Cosign sign with the -- key coming from my KMS, right? And I could do the same as previously, Cosign verify on this specific image, right? So here we just added the interaction with Cloud KMS. Pretty convenient and yet secure, right? Now what I want to show you is, fine, I have this container image and it's signed in my artifact registry. Now what I want to do is only allow my container, which are signed from within my Google Artifact Registry, to be deployable in my Kubernetes cluster, in this case, GK, right? Google Kubernetes Engine. So what I want to leverage as a first illustration is Sigstore Policy Controller. So that's an admission controller that you install within your GK cluster, not to be confused with ACM, Entos Config Management Policy Controller. That's a different tool here. That's very Sigstore Policy Controller here we are leveraging. And we will be able to admit and authorize any container images signed with a dedicated key, right? We will leverage also workload identity to have a more secure way from policy controller to interact with both Google Artifact Registry and Cloud KMS, again, to add more security in this setup. And actually, the policy is very simple. Here is my cluster image policy. And that's where I will provide the path of my KMS key, right? So I put a bash variable here, but that's how you will have a simple definition about I admit in my cluster just container images signed with this key, right? Very powerful here. So what I could propose here, it's a quick show here of the console. So let me, and I don't know if it's big enough, so maybe let me zoom in. Stacy, interrupt me if you see that it's too small for the audience, please. But typically what I want to show you is here. Again, I have already 2 container images. Maybe I could zoom in a little bit more. Again, I have 2 images. That's my image and that's the signature, right? So that's in my artifact registry. It's working with container registry as well. On the other hand, I have this Kubernetes cluster here. And what I can show you very quickly is my setup. So just to make sure I have workload identity set up here to have a more granular security setup with my component I'm using, Sigstore Policy Controller. So I have workload identity set up here. By the way, I will share the blog post where all the step-by-step setup is provided. So no worries if I'm not providing yet all the detail about the workflow of this demo. what I can show you here is quickly. So I already installed a policy controller, right? So if I show you, sorry about that. I have already here authentication. So I have already policy controller from Sigstore installed here. And I have already deployed the, sorry about that, here, the policy I just showed you earlier, right? So it's already deployed. And I just want to show you the value of this object already deployed in my Kubernetes cluster here. So what we could see is here, I have the key, the full path of my key, and I'm enforcing for any images, right? So that's how simple you could define this policy. You could have more granular setup to use here. What you need to do then is, for example, I have this namespace test, and I need to annotate any namespace where I want this policy to be enforced, right? And that's where, sorry, here, I have policy Sigstore dev include true. So I want to enforce in the namespace test this policy, right? And any policy applicable, right? So let's have a quick test here. I want to deploy, it could be from this kubectl command here, kubectl create deployment. It could be from your CD, continuous deployment tool. It could be from a GitOps tool. Any way you are deploying your container in your GKE cluster or Kubernetes cluster, they will interact with the admission controller, policy controller. And here I have a deny message. Why? Because I'm using this public image, which is not signed and not part of my private Google artifact registry. So here it's very, again, sorry for using this word a lot, powerful, right? Because here I'm blocking any container coming from outside my artifact registry and not signed within my pipeline, my software supply chain pipeline. What I want to show you,
Mathieu.
Yeah.
Are you able to, like, can you like actually trust anything that's not from your private registry? Just like I'm actually trusting the Nginx one and I want to sign it so it's accepted. Do I just need to kind of bring it over? Like I need to like put it in my registry so I can sign it properly?
Yeah, so the goal here, so if I got your question correctly, that's actually what I have on the next demo. So what I did is I brought just before this Nginx container into my own artifact registry, right? So I brought this here in my artifact registry. Sorry about that. That's where I copy, if I could say, the Nginx container in my own artifact registry. I signed it, and that's one way to do that. I'm not sure it's answering your question. Or maybe
it does. It is answering it. So that's,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm guessing you can't really, like, if you're not hosting it, it's kind of hard to sign and trust if you're not the one.
Yeah, so that's a good question, actually. And actually, before doing the rest of my demo, you remember here, and good question, Stacy, by the way, look at that. I have one, so here it's an object cluster image policy, right? And look at that. I have for any images, right? What I could do is to be more granular. I could say not star, which is any images. I could say for images coming from this artifact registry, please verify that they are signed with this key. What you are bringing is, let's say I want to use the Nginx from open source, right? And not bringing that in my registry. That's maybe discutable, but you could do that, right? You could have another here cluster image policy and say, hey, for this specific other registry or image, right, I want to enforce with another key, right? It could be a public key provided by Nginx ecosystem and project. So you could have different and be very granular on which registry, which image, and which key you want to use. Hope that makes sense and answer your question.
It does. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So what I want to do is just, we just illustrated earlier that I could deny any random image. Here, I have this specific image coming from this artifact registry, and I'm using the digest. That's how you could make sure it's immutable image. And yeah, that's successful. Now I have this Nginx deployment created, right? Because that's this very exact image signed previously by my software supply chain pipeline, right? So yeah, all good. So that was part of the demo here. And let me resume the rest of the presentation and make sure you are seeing the proper screen. Wonderful. So yeah, that's what we just illustrated, this part. And you could have multiple cluster image policy with more granular setup like Stacy, you mentioned. Thank you again for the question. Another aspect and another tool you could leverage, pretty same setup with workload identity on GKE is Kyverno. So if you're using a policy engine, for example, Kyverno, they are supporting this kind of check about container image signing, right, with Cosign. If you know KubeVarden or Connoisseur, they have leverage and capabilities as well to do that. I'm not illustrating that. I won't do a demo with Kyverno, but here it's the cluster policy equivalent from the previous one in their own specification. And that's the same. Image references, star, again, I could be fine granular and attestors with one key, and the key is coming from KMS. So it's working with secure setup as well. So that's two options I'm providing here to verify at admission controller time within your Kubernetes cluster that any container images is coming from your registry and is signed properly, right? So good, we just did that, congrats. And that's a secure environment here. But now, if I want to push a little bit further the concept and discussion here, there is also a way to bundle and package your Kubernetes manifest, right? Because here we were just talking about container image, but there is a way to bundle manifest, right? Kubernetes manifest. I want a deployment, a service, an ingress, a secret, a service account. And I could bundle these files in two ways. There is the mchart way, and there is the OCI image way. I mentioned earlier Open Container Initiative specification to containerize a bunch of files, right? So that's another way to do that. Out there, there is only one way, and I will discuss why, to verify before actually applying manifest in your cluster. You could verify the cosign signature, and Flux is providing that. There is workaround or other tool doing kind of that, but that's the most powerful and out-of-the-box setup you could find here to guarantee that also not just your container image, also your manifest are signed properly. And that's pretty simple. Here is a command line. Helm, you remember Docker push? Helm push. And I'm pushing in my artifact registry within Google, right? I generate a key pair, public and private, locally here. And I'm signing this chart. And it will be the same. 2 entries in my artifact registry. The container, the mchart image, plus the signature, 2 entries. And I could verify at any point in my workflow if I want to. Here, I'm not using Cloud KMS. There is currently a limitation, and I will explain, which is with Flux, it's only supporting storing the public key as a secret within your Kubernetes cluster, right? And that's where and how you will define that. So here, I want to deploy manifest, right, from my mchart. And this mchart is a container image, an OCI image, right? And I'm defining with these two objects, Helm repository and mchart. And I'm also using the verify option at the very bottom of this manifest, provider cosign and secret ref with the public keys that I stored previously in a secret within my cluster, right? Very interesting. Workload identity is working. Cloud KMS is not yet supported, so just heads up here. And I have a link at the bottom if you want to follow this issue. And yeah, that's one way to do that. Now, on a more generic way, OCI image. I don't know if you're familiar with ORAS, the first command line. That's a way to push any OCI image, so any file, let's say, in your OCI registry. In our case, again, Google Artifact Registry. So ORAS push, like Docker push or npush, right? ORAS push this image. It's now in my artifact registry. I could locally generate my public and private key. I could sign this OCI image. Again, it will generate a second entry, .sig, so the signature of this image. And I could verify at any point with the public key, right? So that's the workflow here, and I will leverage Flux. Flux is able to pull any, on a GitOps way, to pull any OCI image containing, let's say, a bundle of Kubernetes manifest. It's secure with workload identity as well. And here is a manifest. How to do that? It's using the OCI repository. And you could see the URL, the provider, and the verify section at the very bottom. Again, my public key is stored as a secret within my Kubernetes cluster. And later in the future, maybe KMS will be supported, hopefully, right? And actually, that's all what we demonstrated. There is a lot of artifact out there that you could verify with the open source ecosystem with Sigstore. But what we have seen today is also in your corporate enterprise environment within Google Cloud, how you could leverage a secure setup with Google Kubernetes Engine, GKE, Google Artifact Registry, and Cloud KMS for 3 scenarios: your container image, your M chart, and your OCI image, and how you could guarantee that they are signed and they are the one that you could expose to your organization, to your internal consumer and user, but they are sure that that's a good one they are using and leveraging, and they are not compromised. That's all related to the zero trust setup, and that Sigstore and the signature workflow is bringing within your security software supply chain. So I hope you enjoy the flow, the content, and I ask a bunch of questions. I just see one thumbs up on the, are you using binary authorization? That's good. One person here. That's on the Q&A section of the chat. Please, if you still have some answer to provide, are you using a policy engine? And are you using a GitOps tool? I will wrap up with some links. We haven't discussed about binary authorization, right? So someone may want to ask, yeah, but what about binary authorization, which is built in within Google Cloud, right? That's something I haven't illustrated. That's a different technology, different project. But yes, there is some capabilities you could do. The only caveat is it's only for container image, right? It's not for your open source package. It's not for your N chart. It's not for your OCI image. It's just for container image. It's working well. So if you want to use that, please continue to do that. There is also other tool I mentioned, Kubevardhan Connoisseur, only for container image as well, right? Flux is adding these capabilities that we demonstrated to have Cosign verification on nchart and OCI image more generically. I provided a bunch of links here about more context. If you want to know more about what's an OCI artifact, OCI image, I provided a link to someone explaining very well what is it. There's a different signature format, binary authorization versus notary V2, and Sigstore. There is 3 kind of different formats of the signature out there, and there is more. If you want to know all the options out there, that's a good one. That's the second link here in more context section. And yeah, another talk from Sigstore Con last October, where someone explained why you shouldn't just trust the provenance from your registry of your container images, but as well why you should care and make sure and verify the signature of them. That was the goal of this talk. But if you want more proof and other scenario, there is this link, Sigstore, or how we learn to stop trusting registry and loving signature instead, or in addition to that, right? I also want to mention that Sigstore is using a bunch of tools I mentioned in the workflow. Behind the scenes, there is this transaction logs entries record. The open source tool is called Record. There is a managed offer out there. That's why it's so simple to do cosign sign and cosign verify. Behind the scene records, these transaction log entries may have some sensitive information. For example, the email of the signer, right? On a corporate environment, that could be a concern. So I provided 3 links about how you could deploy locally or anywhere your own Sigstore instance and workflow. And also example for Autodesk and other corporate environments, illustrating how they are using Sigstore on corporate and let's say FedRAMP compliance environment. So just to make sure that there is a lot of proof and improvement going over there with a more secure aspect as well. So I hope you enjoy this talk. I would like to finish with the last bullet point here. It's about Gatekeeper. I haven't mentioned Gatekeeper. I just mentioned Kyverno. It's because today, Gatekeeper, OPA Gatekeeper, and if you're using policy controller within NTOS config management, they are not yet supporting Cosign upstream Gatekeeper open source. And I provided a link. They need contributor. So if you want to provide this support of verifying container images with Gatekeeper policies, please feel free to find someone who could contribute. I hope you enjoy this talk. Stacy, I don't know if I was out of time or if I still have time. Maybe we could ask last question.
You
If
still have time. If it was me presenting, we would like be blowing like I would be like this. Yeah. But I have one thing actually, because you've mentioned bin auth and
yeah.
So I mean, like, if like we know that in binary authorization, like I'm able to say only like allow from like this container repo, like that's one of the option. So a good mix for getting everything from Cosign is to, yes, maybe I just want to trust like something from, let's say, gcr.io in project X within my own org. So then I know the source, but then after that I can use Cosign to actually trust the source, like the artifact itself that's been provided to me. So
you could do that. That's a good point. But to be fair, binary authorization is also providing the attestation. So that's the equivalent of the signature. Where and in the attestation, you could actually sign your container image. So the technology is GPG. So I provided the signature format, right? That's where you could actually sign your image with Kritis and Grapheas. I provided the open source name of the project out there. So you could do also signature provenance verification with binary authorization as well, without the need of Cosign.
yeah, but
Does
to
that
your
make
point,
sense?
like the Cosign is doing more than just container.
So Cosign,
Running.
so that's a good point. That's why I'm illustrating Cosign here, and Cosign with the entire ecosystem. And thanks to Flux tool, for example, you could do more than just container image. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's the point
Cool.
here. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, for your links, I know that if you want to share them with me, I'll be like, when we do the posting and all that, I'll be able to include them. Also, if you have them handy, you can paste them in general, and people can hijack them directly from there also. So feel free to do so.
Yeah, sorry about that. A lot of links. What I want to do is generate a PDF of this presentation where anyone could click on any link afterward. So I don't have yet the link of the PDF. I will share that with you, Stacy.
Yep.
And I'm pretty much sure we could put that in the event description later, right?
Yes, I can put that there, and also I'll ref to it inside the YouTube channel.
Cool.
So that
Wonderful.
we will have it there. So
do we have any question? I don't know if people could ask live question. If they have, they could unmute themselves or ask
they
question.
can't. Like I have to do that. But like so
No
far
problem.
in general and in QA, we have no questions. But like I mean, you can ask question in an anonymous fashion also. So if you want to, so if you don't want your name to show up or something, feel free. If actually question happens later, then we can just bring them over and I can share them with you, and we can bring that to the thread, so that way people will have their answers.
Yeah, I need to leave the call, the session. Sorry about that. It's
no, you told me, but that's all
session.
good. Thank you for your time. Congrats again on the CNA piece. Super nice to have like someone else in Quebec also like in the ambassador program, like with Archie they've been like doing this for years, but no, it's great. So congrats again, and thanks for your time today. And then next one's at Nicholas, you're up. So
thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much. It was really, really interesting. And you were right, Stacy, at the beginning. You said, which one is sweet, which one is sour? Matthew was definitely sweet. And my part, I think it's the sour one. I was thinking it was less sexy, but
hey,
we'll see.
We
I'm
can
hoping
make.
I'm not going to lose too many people when I start.
We'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, so I'm Nicholas. I'm a cloud customer engineer at Google Montreal. I'm based out of Montreal. I don't live near Stacy in Saint-Hilaire. I'm really in Montreal, on the Montreal Island. I've been at Google for 3 years now. I'm specialized in infrastructure and application modernization. But for some reasons, I get a lot of questions from my customers and colleagues around FinOps. So I got interested in my previous life. I was as well. I worked before Google. I worked in large organizations where costs were always a concern, a question. We had a lot of projects about cost optimization. So I got many times involved as an architect into whether it's costing, finances, or what we call now FinOps or cloud FinOps for cloud services. Today we're gonna focus. I'm just gonna give an overview really quick about FinOps because it's really a discipline by itself, and we can spend hours and hours talking about it. So I'm just gonna give an overview of it, and I will focus mostly on some recommended, actions you can take in GCP to optimize your cost. So I will start with few slides, and then I will have like maybe 10 to 15 minutes of a demo or walkthrough of the console where you can do things and validate, if things are okay. It's not long-term actions. It's really tactical actions you can take with some efforts in certain extent, but I'm not going to deep dive into the practice of FinOps and cost optimizations that can, in certain time, that can take a while. So now I'm going to try to share my screen, and I'm hoping it's my first time, so I'm just going to hope
you can do
be able to do it properly. Yeah. So
Google it if you're not sure.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just gonna. Here we go. Here.
Perfect.
Is it big enough? Do you see?
Yes, I see it quite well.
Okay, because me it's small on my screen, so I'm a bit scared. Anyway, so here we go. We start. For some reason it's small, but anyway. So let's go. Yeah. So I'm, like I said, I'm a customer engineer, but I'm also part of a focus group or working group in Google in general that work on what we call architecture framework. And this is like a set of best practices for in terms of security, of system designs, of performance optimizations, and that include as well cost optimization. Like you see here, there are 6 pillars. Today, I'm just going to talk about one. It's really cost optimization. It's just going to be, like I said, an overview. But if you're interested in any of the other pillars, we have full documentations, or you can just reach out to us, and we can even schedule other sessions or specific sessions if you're interested in. So why Cloud FinOps? Why are we always talking about cost? And there is one single reason is I'm a bit distracted, Stacy, because on my screen it's small. So I hope everybody is seeing really well.
It is. Well, I mean, it's smaller than what Benoit was sharing for some reason. It's still readable, it's still clear, but it is on the smaller side.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's probably the tool or something, because even on my screen it's small. Anyway, so I hope it's small. I think it's small. Could you want me to stop and start sharing again bigger?
Yes, please go ahead. We have a bit of buffer, so.
Yeah, because share screen. Apologies everyone for that. Nope. Just gonna. No, it's not. It's really not getting bigger. So I'm trying everything I can. So anyway, so I'm just gonna keep it that way. If there are questions, just ask them in the chat, and I'll continue. So one reason why cost optimization is always on the table, it's because it has always been a priority, and with cloud, it has become one of the topest priority with security. So here, if you can see it, this is Flexera in 2023 analysis, but you're gonna see it like in the last 5 years, cloud cost optimization has been a priority. So unfortunately, even if it's not a sexy topics, if we're more interested in technical stuff, the business is always concerned about cost, so we have to address it and we have to help them. Cloud FinOps is really, like I said at the beginning, it's really a framework and a cultural shift in terms of addressing cost. It brings technology, it brings the finance team and the business teams together to define a financial accountability to bring value to the business. And we do have some guidelines around that when you try to implement or adopt FinOps. And they're mostly around people, because like we know there is technology, people, and process. And all the FinOps is going to be around people and process, and a lot around people. Like you see here, we can talk about, like, encourage individual accountability. I'm more like to say it's, bringing awareness to every player in the organization about the cost and how they are calculated. We need to bring the visibility of the cost and not keep it just for finance or for the IT people or technology people of the cloud. We need to bring it at another level, open it to other groups. We need to enable collaborations. We cannot do or manage the cost on our own. Like, it's not just a problem of finance. It's not just a problem of IT. It's a concern for the whole organization. So everybody has to work and collaborate together. And establish a blameless culture. I'm not sure every company has that culture, but what we mean by that is mostly, there are going to be roadblocks, there are going to be mistakes sometimes, and the whole idea is to bring everybody together. In being collaborative is to be at first blameless and respectful of how people work, and trying to bring confidence and not people getting scared about the cost. Always, like we said, focus on the business value. It's not a change. It's not new. It's not because the cloud is here. It always has been the focus of IT and has to remain that now that we're talking about cost and more. If we look at the building blocks of Cloud FinOps, there are like 5, 6 building blocks. Today, we're going to really focus on some cost optimization. As you can see, I'm hoping you can see this wheel, because on my screen it's so small, it's crazy. There are different parts. You need tools, you need accountability and enablement for the people, the process. You need to measure what you're doing in terms of improving your cost visibility and cost optimizations. There is planning involved, there is forecasting, but they all work, and those parts cannot be like realized in one day. It's a long process. Personally, I conduct many workshops with customers to bring them to different level of maturity in terms of cloud FinOps. Today, we're just going to focus on what I call it more tactical approach, where directly from the console, we can see some quick wins of some flags or lights that ring a bell to us about maybe we're not optimizing enough quickly. So if I go to the next, the first thing we're going to look at is we want to monitor and control our costs. There is nothing you can do about costs if you don't have at least a minimum of visibility. So we're talking about, in terms of visibility, we're talking about some reports. And here we're talking about built-in reports. If you see on the right, there's a screenshot of what we can get as built-in report from the GCP console. I will share it later on. We can have, for example, more advanced and more customized dashboard or reports using BigQuery billing export. So we can export all the costs, all of the resources that we're consuming in GCP into a BigQuery table, and from there build reports that are nice for a lot of people. And you can correlate that with external data, for example, not just what you have in GCP, but you can go up if you're high in your maturity in terms of cost, you can correlate that, for example, with your user or some business metrics or some other systems that give you more insight of the value of what you're consuming compared to what the business is doing. So to a certain extent, you can have what we call unit cost in terms of FinOps. So for example, if I'm managing in the cloud, I have an e-commerce site, I could correlate my consumption data with the number of users that are buying, visiting my site, etc., etc. I could go further and add other metrics from other systems to have like what we call a 360 around all the costing. There is accountability, so we need to have a properly structured resources hierarchy, whether we're using folders, whether we're using projects. So when we generate the cost and we allocate the cost, it makes some sense. So for example, if you have a folder for, let's say, HR or for research and development, you can aggregate the cost directly from the Frobel view and provide, for example, even insight at that group for the projects inside that folder. I like, in terms of accountability, it's not really accountability, but I like to put labels there, because labels are really like metadata that you put on nearly any resource you have in GCP, and you could use that as well, integrated in the billing, to do other type of segregation. So you can have, for example, dev environment per discipline, but you want to see all my dev environment, how they're costing across the organizations in different folders and in different projects. Labels are very, very, very helpful for that. We use labels as well if you want to go, like Mathieu was talking about, containers. If you go in GKE and you enable GKE metering, labels are really useful because you can break down the cost of your cluster inside the cost of each workload that is labeled inside that cluster. So you can break down the cost of your GKE cluster per workload. Is eventually, if you have multi-tenants, the multi-tenancy in your GKE, you can have for each tenant, etc., etc., and you can break down it up to like resources like CPU, memory, and networking. You have to manage, in terms of accountability, of course, you have to manage the access controls. And that's why the billing exports is a lot easier, because you can use an external tool where you provide access to people that don't really need access to the GCP console, compared to giving them the built-in report in GCP console. They will need to log into GCP console, give them access, limit their access to what they need or can see, compared to, for example, using Looker or Looker Studio. By the way, Looker Studio, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but Looker Studio is what we used to call Data Studio before. So in that way, you completely don't provide access in GCP console, but to an external tool. I didn't start my timer, so Stacy, like usual, I told you before, if I go overboard, just flag me, okay?
No problem.
So we have, is this readable? I'm confused here. Is this readable on the screen?
It is for me. I just read that. Are you sharing a tab right now?
Yes, I'm sharing a tab.
I think it may be the thing versus
Oh,
like
that's
sharing
the
a
issue.
window.
Okay. So. Okay. So let me share a window. Share.
See if the documentation is.
Nope. It's the same.
Here we go. That's way better.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's 100% better. It's like 3 times bigger.
Oh my God! Sorry. My apologies, everybody. So
no, it's a known issue. So I was hunting for an answer. So good. All right.
So I'm just gonna quick back to the slide so people can see. We had here the big blocks. Now you can see them really 3 times bigger. And we have here any, I think, related to visibility in terms of cost with the reporting. So on the right side, we see the screen of the GCP console for the built-in reports. And at the bottom, we have a screenshot of Looker Studio using data with BigQuery billing export in BigQuery tables. So back to my slide. Again, so in terms of cost optimization recommendations, we have many recommendations, and I want to have the time to go over everything. I will focus on few, the most common and the most easiest one. But if you're interested, we can share any documentation. It's all on either the architecture guideline that we have, or even on the GCP documentation in general. So if I focus really on compute, I will be showing and demoing right-sizing VM, how we can like get visibility from that from the GCP console, deciding what you do with idle VM or persistent disk. Like for example, something has happened, you want to just delete them, backup them and delete them. You can, and I'm not going to demonstrate that, we can do VM scheduling. So you can stop and start VM on demand. I have customers, for example, they do some development and some non-required environment. They shut them down during the weekend. So Friday at 9 or 10 p.m., they shut them down automatically, and they get started up again Monday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. Seems obvious, but just this makes that environment save 20% of the cost, because 2 days of the week they're off, or maybe even more than 20%. You have to always look at new generation of instances, because sometimes they're cheaper with more power or more RAM. So it's always a good thing to keep up with the new instances we bring. Use custom machine type. This is completely obvious. I'm not going to show that. What I'm going to focus today as well is I'm going to talk about CUDs. And this is what we call commit usage discount. And there are 2 types of CUDs. There is like the regular CUD, if you're familiar with GCP, which is on a project base in a specific region. And there is the CUD Flex that's been introduced, I believe, last year, if it's not the year before, as a preview, where you can basically extend your commit to multiple projects and multiple regions and a larger type of machines. Preemptible VM, this can save up to 80% if this is non-critical workload. So because the machine can be stopped after 24 hours by Google, and you can restart it and re-request it, but by default, it will stop. So sometimes not. But for example, for batch work that it's not really critical, it's really, really useful to consider preemptibles during your design, for example. And here I'm just like overlapping from the cost optimization with the design practice, because there are always links be all the pillars here. Storage, in general, there are different things we can look at. We have different type of storage. I'm not going to show storage. I'm just going to talk about storage classes at a high level. We have now auto class storage. So instead of you deciding and putting policies about how you keep the retentions and the retentions of the objects, you can let the system decide for you. So if it sees that an object hasn't been accessed for 3 months, it can move it to a less accessible and cheaper storage for you. BigQuery, I'm not going to talk about it. There are a lot of other optimizations we can talk. Just invite you to just keep them in mind, and we'll discuss it if you're interested. Now, Stacy has been kind enough to chat me privately to say you have less than 15 minutes. So if we don't have time to talk about this, it's just about improving and reducing your cost. Don't go overboard. Don't go high effort, high savings. Start always low effort, low saving. I know it's like, common sense, but always when you try to look at cost savings, look at that way. It's always beneficial for everybody. And now back to, a demo. So I'm just going to stop sharing this. And again, I'm hoping that I'm going to do the right thing here. Share window. Wait. And everybody let me, Stacy, is it big enough?
Yep, full screen, perfect.
Full screen. So this is my console, my GCP console. It's a dev environment. It's not a production, so don't worry if you see like a lot of security issues. It's a completely closed environment, so no worries. It's just a playground for me. I'm hoping today, because this morning I had some performance issues, so I'm hoping it's all stabilized. This is the recommendation page. And if you're wondering how you can get there, you just go into the search, for example, and you type in recommendation. And in Cloud Overview, you have all the recommendation. This is here. So you have recommendation about the costs, about the commitments, and you also have other recommendations that will come up there, like, for example, security, even if those recommendations will appear as well in SCC, the Security Council, but they add them here just, so you have visibility because they're generic recommendation. One thing you can do, I strongly always recommend customers and people to do it, is you have a button at the top here which will export, and you can export all the recommendations all the time to BigQuery, so you can integrate them as well into your dashboard. So instead of having to log into the console, you can have them in the dashboard. So having people say, hey, we had this recommendation for 6 months now, nobody took action, we should do something about it. Now, about type of recommendations in terms of cost, there are some recommendations that you're going to see are related to really unused resources or not well-used resources. Those are stuff that the system recognize over time and will recommend something. For example, here it says, you have some VMs that you're not using. Maybe you should shut them down. So what it's going to recommend is say, okay, this is a resource name, this is the location. What we recommend is shutting it down, and you're going to save $23. Well, this is a really small VM. I'm just going to, but back it up before. Make sure that I'm not saying a recommendation you should take immediate action. It's just an awareness of resources that it's absolutely not used. CPU has 0, no network traffic. Maybe you should do something about it. There is another one is you can have something like that where it says you could right size your VM in GCE, because it shows here the CPU utilization. It says, you're using a medium, a E2 medium, because there's no CPU usage, you could reduce it to E2 small, reduce the RAM, and you're going to save like $12 a month, and things go on and on. You can see those type of recommendations. We can see them elsewhere, even in the GCE part of the console. We'll show it to you later on. The other part of the recommendation is the commitments. And I'm not going to go here in the commitments. I'm going to show you how to navigate the commitment in general. but be aware that if you don't have any commitment, it's going to show up there because it says if you had a commitment, you can save money. So let's go here, and I'm just going to go into Compute Engine here now and show you part of how to create a commit discount. Like you see here, I have some VMs running, and I have my recommendations. They still appear here, and I have the recommendation to reduce the size as a first, and I have the other recommendation as well, which is to shut it down altogether if I want to doing a backup. So even if I missed it in the recommendation page, in the VM here, I see it. Again, recommendations strongly suggest that you export them to BigQuery. I'll show you how to export in general. Now, if I go still here, there is something called commit use discounts. And this here is where I can create what we call a standard CUD, a standard commit usage discount. And I can purchase a commit. And basically what it does is, here we go. Nice, it's fast today. So I have to choose a region. I have to choose a commitment of type of machines. And I have to say how many cores, how many memory I commit. This is like the total value of the CPU and memory that I'm going to be using. So it's like if you're using multiple VMs, you have to do the math with the cores, etc. And you can decide it's 1 year or 3 years. You can add SSD, you can add GPU and purchase. The thing is, it applies to the projects. It's specific to a region and to a specific type of machine. So it's somehow restrictive. That's why we came up with what we call flex CUDs. And for some reason, flex CUDs is not in GCE. It's somewhere else. It's going to go into the billing part because we want to apply the CUD flex going to be applied to multiple projects. So we have to go nearly at the org level to see it. If I go in billing here, is it fast? Yeah, so I'm linking my billing account. And if I go into commit use discount, I'm going to see I can purchase here, and you're going to see there is a big difference. Okay, is if I choose compute engine, you see there is nothing that refers to regions. There is nothing that refers to machine types. Even if it's not all machine type, but general purposes machines in general, they can be included there. You can still choose 1 year, 3 years. The percentage varies. There is, here we go. How many minutes do I have left? Maybe not too much.
7.
Stacy, I'm done.
No, 7 minutes. You still good.
Yay! So I still have time for the billing export. So I mentioned before, I say you can see in your reports here in billing, we're in billing, I'm going to reports, and I have the visibility by project. So I can group by project, like you can see here, but I can skew. So if I choose skew, it's going to show me like, you know, type of instances, Cloud SQL, network, etc. I can, you know, I can choose a month. I can choose custom range if I want to. I can decide to include or exclude all the discounts I have, but it's already pre-built. It's in the console. You can use it. It's pretty useful. The thing is, if you want to do more, get more granular in different things, you go into billing export, like I said, where you're going to export it to BigQuery and to specific tables. And here, so just so note, if you were using file export, it's been deprecated and it's disabled for me by default. I cannot enable it anymore. But in billing export, there are 3 things you can export. It's your standard usage cost. This is more general. It's at the projects and resource types. And you have the detailed usage cost, which allow you to get per resource, named resource that you name it in the console, so you can group them for specific types, etc. after that. And it will export as well your pricing. So if you have a specific pricing, and this is usually done with finance, and your procurement is, if you have like a contract with Google, you might have some specific discount on specific SKUs, or in general, let's say you can have 10%, you can have 15% on GCEs already. So this will export the price. So when you build your report, you get the real price and not like the generic price. So it's really accurate. And if I show you how to do it, like it's already enabled, but if it's disabled and I enable it, it will show you a screen like this where you're going to choose in which project the SQL, the dataset, BigQuery dataset reside. And you're going to choose the dataset and it will create automatically the tables after. If you will look at it in terms of, share this tab instead. Yep. You're going to see that if I go into my billing cost, which was the data set I selected, you see my export resources. This is a detail. There is the export V1. This is a name that's created by the system. You cannot change it. And you see also I have GKE cluster here is because I have enabled in my GKE cluster, I have enabled GKE metering that allows me to get, like I said, using labels, visibility on the cost of the workloads inside my GKE. And with that, I'm done, I guess. If I'm not sure if I have time, but Stacy,
I just throwed you a curveball with that data export. Would be nice to see it in Visual Studio, in Looker Studio. Sorry.
Right now, I don't have it.
No, I just like if we just like open the link for the doc, like there's a graph that shows the I've just put it in the chat with you if you
Oh,
want
okay.
to. Just that's a great way. It's like data is
Yeah, I
exported.
know
That's
it's really
always
useful, and
nice to see it.
I had some.
Since you still have like a few minutes, well, we might just want to.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't want to take up to. Yeah, those are. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm just going to share this tab. Is that what you wanted to show?
Yeah, where we see that's funny. We're but yeah, that's it's the content distribution is different. I have an updated graphic that, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
still the idea is that it's where we're like from that data export, you're able to leverage like Looker Studio to get
Oh,
some
yeah,
insights.
and I'm sorry I didn't have time. Like if the time allowed, I don't have time to go through Looker Studio or even Looker with the billing. But it's like Stacy mentioned, it's really useful. I never personally I never use the console billing. I always use Looker Studio, and I strongly recommend that anyone using GCP do a billing export to BigQuery. It's not going to consume that much in BigQuery. Like we're not talking about even $10 because it's only text, it's really small tables, and you're not going to be doing like tons of queries. So it's for the value, it's worth it. Try it. If you need, maybe Stacey, if you want me, I can schedule something else, we can talk about it, but that's I'm not sure I have time for questions from anyone.
Looking if there so far nothing in the general or Q&A, so
well, thank you for inviting me. I hope it was helpful and useful. Now I'll leave you with Stacy. He has also a demo, again, about costing and evaluating using some tools.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. So yes, with the time that we have, we're going until like 1:15, so I want to be mindful of everybody's time. But that's the beauty of being of recording is that we'll be able to make it. Just want to make sure I actually share a window and not a tab, and hopefully, just let me know. Somebody can just give me a thumbs up if it's actually full size. Nick or anybody in the chat, or okay, it's good, perfect, thank you. So yeah, to your point that Nick, yeah, for me it's small, but it's the important is that it's big for everybody. So yeah, we're gonna skip over my presentation. See my face enough. So the idea is that we've chatted about FinOps, we've chatted about we didn't go deep. Like the idea is to give you an idea of what it is. It is a practice on its own. It is something that needs to be looked into properly. But the main thing is that well, with FinOps, we have all those data points. We're able to like apply cost control. We have the optimization from the platform itself. We can leverage like labels to be able to like assign like projects billing to specific teams, and then get those labels out into like your BQ export for billing. And then with Looker Studio, you're able to get that visibility, those dashboards, which you can share with your CFO, because the CFO really doesn't want to log into GCP and looking at the billing. But giving that through Looker Studio makes it super easy. And Looker Studio is free, so and the documentation actually tells you exactly what you need to do to get those reports going. And it's just like, honestly, it's a cut and paste, just walk through. So, but with that in mind, there's a piece also with FinOps, and it goes with, I'm talking about reporting, which is visibility. But what about like if I'm a developer, part of a DevOps team, and we're coding? Would there be a way to actually get visibility on what we're doing? If I'm creating a new Terraform module that's spinning up like GKE clusters with 10 GPUs, maybe it would be nice to know how much it costs before I actually deploy it. So our friends, of course, I'm talking Terraform. So our friends from HashiCorp, if we go on the HashiCorp, the Terraform Cloud piece, there is a tier of where you subscribe, where you actually get those information. But what I want to do here, and again, like not a sales pitch, here it's actually leveraging Infracost. So Infracost, of course, it's a full-on platform, but it has a free tier. And that's the one I want to focus on. So basically, Infracost, it's a SaaS offering. You can also like self-host it in GKE with Helm charts. Most of the stuff is done through CLI. You can hook it up to your source control of choice. You can have a plugin for VS Code. You have the full CI/CD integration. So there is a CLI that comes with Infracost. So you're able to use that also like with whatever you want, like is a like bash scripting or whatever is needed for you to do your thing. And also it's Terraform friendly. What do I mean by that is that I can actually leverage an out file from a Terraform plan, flip it into JSON, and then feed it to Infracost. So I'm able to get information from my Terraform run that I'm doing. Just FYI, this demo was the demo I'm going to go through leverages the code of this structure. So that was provided by Google. So it's just like a multi. It's a multi cloud SQL. So like primary replica, multi-region. And yeah, we're not deploying this because this is not a Terraform play, but we're actually leveraging this as resources on which we're going to get information on. So let me just, and that's going to be the links after I'm going to share with everybody. So let me bring this thing up properly. So we're just going to go with this one, maybe make it a little bit bigger. That's probably going to be helpful. So yeah, so Infracost on its own, it is, like I said, it's full SaaS. So once you have done the installation, you're connecting your things and all that, like you're getting that nice little piece of information, which is your dashboard with what's going on. And like full disclosure, I'm still in trial mode, so I created a new one just so people can see it. Again, not a sales pitch, but just say, hey, what am I getting if I'm using this? So you're actually able to see what's going on. I have right now a single repo. I did some updates when I tested my demo, of course, before the event, and then like you can actually see like what's going on in terms of cost, and then you have nice little graphs and all that. So it is a full-on tool. We're gonna focus on the free version, which removes some of those features, but it's really not like honestly, it's really not such a big deal. Because honestly, I think the end goal is to actually do things within your pipeline and see what's actually going on inside the VS Code piece. So to give you an example, and I don't know if I can make it just a bit. It's not so bad. All right. So right now I'm in VS Code. Nothing special in there. What we can see with the integration, which is here, the Infracost piece, is like within this main.tf, there's a few lines here you can actually see, like total monthly cost 0. This one's like $8.03. So I'm not sharing the right screen. All right, that's oh, because that's, thank you for telling me, because let me, because I'm want this one. That's probably better. So I'll have to be mindful of that. So yeah, and thanks for that. It would be like sucky demos. I just look at the slide while I talk. So yeah, so in VS Code, uh, my main.tf, I have multiple lines where I can actually see values in there. And let's say if I use this one total at $8.03, if I click on it, it's actually telling me, hey, well, this is like a global forwarding rule, running for 730 hours, and we know depending on usage, like is $0.01 per gig. So this is this is something that gives you like, you know, baked in as you create those modules, actually like input on what you're doing, which is great. So that gives you visibility inside your VS Code piece. Um, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, that's part of the integration, and it's a great way of getting visibility inside VS Code. So as I code, stuff is going to happen based on the repos that I'm using. The integration has been done. Of course, there's a link between Infracost and VS Code and the SaaS one. The way things are working is that for any time you're asking for pricing, it's basically an API call to their billing API. And the fact that I'm using GCP as my provider in Terraform, it tells it also to give me the pricing, of course, for GCP and not, let's say, Azure or AWS. So based on your resource and all that, it's going to be able to pull everything. And if you were defining something like an AWS resource within the same piece of code, because you have multi-provider, it will also adjust based on those resource types. So, which is again like great for insight. It's giving you details on what's going on, and which is great to have around. So, if I the next one was going to be, let me, because I have a problem here with my trying to get my notepad back, and it's gone. I don't know where it's gone. So, all right, that's nice. Gonna close it and start again. There you go. When in doubt, reboot your notepad. So excellent. So I'm I'm still here. So yeah. So what I wanted to actually show now as a next, and I can stick with this one for now. So we know that problem is that this is all nice, but what about like proper interaction with Infracost? Like this is giving you like pointers of information. If I'm using, when everything is set up, you integrated and all that, you install everything, you're hooked up with your your API key, so everything is connected. You're able to leverage the Infracost, actually like the CLI, and you're able to do things like right now I'm inside my my GCP repo for that Cloud SQL multi-region, and say, well, can you just give me a cost breakdown of what I have in this path? So what's gonna do? Look at my Terraform module and everything, and start like giving me information. So just tell me, say, hey, you have like X amount of resources, and this is the breakdown of everything. So like your SQL instances, your storage, anything that's needed, you have it there. So it's a great. That's like a good way of getting information out. So that's also a great way to get visibility. So yes, it's not baked in my VS Code, but it's allowing me also like to interact just based on the repo I'm at, Terraform code, and just making calls straight to the API at the other end. Another good way to actually look at that is that, and it's just like cut and paste. So I just want to make it faster, being mindful of the time. Uh, I can ask it to do the same thing, but actually drop something in a JSON file as an output. So I've asked the Infracost to give me the Infracost base.json file. So, and that's what I want to do right after this. This kind of gives me like a baseline. I want to go inside my my code here, and that's like the OS disk for compute for my managed instance group. Instead of like 500, let's go with 50 gig, and then from there, I'm gonna run another command if I can click properly. All right, and just say, well, can you actually compare this repo, like the right now the new content, with the baseline I've just generated before? And it's gonna run again and tell me that, yeah, well, actually now you've been good. Like you've been good. We're saving 76 bucks on this run because you went from 500 gig OS to like a 50 gig OS. So which is great. So you've been a good corporate citizen and you just saved us like $76 a month times 12. And again, that's a great way of being able to query that information. Another way to go about this, and I still have my infra code, my infra as a base, but I'm just gonna run this again. If you think about like running this into like a pipeline or something where you can actually like get values and grab logic out of it, you're like this is basically we're generating uh, like a JSON files, and with JSON, of course, like if I cat a JSON file, it's like it's not, well, it's technically human readable, but it has no structure. So I can use JQ to like wiggle things around, but I can also just use JQ to maybe like get some specific values. So like, is there any monthly difference between like the last run and this run? Like in this case, it says 0. So of course, when I did it before, it wasn't saying the 0, but it's total cost increase right now. If there's a decrease, it doesn't showing anything. Usually I'm just going higher and not lower, but you're able to get those values out. So that way you can actually get some logic on like if the value is bigger than X%, maybe stop the run. Like maybe don't allow for this to be merged or anything. Um, Another way to look at it, and this is really just dropping you like a bucket load of information in one shot, but and I know I speak fast, so just play me back at 0.5x after I've said it was Terraform friendly, so I just want to prove it. Um, the code that I have right now, it's that multi-regional. It's gonna ask me for the password, so like yeah, password, so it's super safe. There's a 0 in there. So um, I need to generate, I've asked it to generate an out file, so tfplan.binary, which is basically contains all the resources that needs to be created. And from there, the rest is just like Terraform right now, is just, I'm gonna ask it to, I know I pasted it fast, I'm just gonna ask it to convert it into a JSON format, and then I can actually use the Infracost on that plan and start to get something out of it. So we know there's 40 resources. We know that there's going to be a charge increase, and why? Because based on the state file and differences, uh, this is where the values are coming from. But again, leveraging Terraform and be able to do that in there. So I'm thanks Nicholas for the the heads up. So one thing I want to and I'm gonna just kind of wrap up with that quite simply. Let me actually just stop sharing and restart sharing another window to make sure that it stays the right size. All right. So I'm back into like the not the well the paid version. So and I'm able to do the same thing in VS Code. That's just if I do a PR and I would actually want to see what's going on. There's multiple ways to go about this. So I can do it with Visual Studio Code, but I can also do it. I'll do it straight in there, and then we'll maybe just go over by 2 minutes. But I just want to make sure it's covered. So right now I want to cover two things. There's one thing we can do once you have your repo set up, regardless of the repo. If you go on it and then you go in settings, nice little way there is that there's markdown here you can leverage for that repo and put it inside your README .markdown, which actually gives you the cost of your repo straight in the README. So again, visibility of cost. You want it everywhere, so it's there. Maybe you don't have the VS Code extension, but you're able to actually see at this repo right now with current values, it's $172 a month. So I'm able to see that, which is great. Another thing, and I wanted to show, and that's going to be the last one to sum up the Infracost piece. I know it's been a roller coaster. So let's go in GCE.tf, and I'll edit the value of the hard drive again. So that's the other one was local. I never committed it, so that's why. So let's go to 125. Let's go bigger. I need 700 gig. Um, so and I'm gonna create a new branch and says like demo GDG. Propose the change and create a PR. Yep, create a PR. So what this is gonna do, classic PR. We're in a we're in GitHub with the GitHub integration because we're able to integrate with GitHub, GitLab CI, Azure DevOps, and many others. Infracost is going to run, and with it, within GitHub itself, I'm also able to get information on what's going on, like what actually changed in this build. So regardless of where I am, I'm able to get that information, get visibility on what am I doing right now and how much it's actually going to cost. Of course, not all the resources in GCP or AWS or Azure are there. Most of them are, so you're actually able to get maybe not like 100% accurate, but even if you're 85% accurate, it's still better than like I don't know. Then you get a ballpark. So right now we can actually see that there's a 20% increase from the previous month, 172, which was put in our README file, and the resources that are affected. So right now we're gonna merge this PR, confirm the merge, and delete the branch. So if I were in Visual Studio Code, it would be the same thing. I mean, it's just a question of updating the information, and the README file also needs to refresh at one point so that the value shows in there. So that's like drinking from a fire hose of Infracost. So thanks for bearing with me. I just wanted to show that it's not because you're coding that you can't be made aware of how much things will actually end up costing um, in GCP. So or again, like whatever other like what other provider you're using. So of course stick to GCP. So but but that's the idea. It's like the idea is that if you're aware of the cost, I mean it's kind of in your face like everywhere you're going, but it kind of becomes a reflex of, hey, so if I'm doing this POC or this test, can I actually look and see it will cost us as an extra? But that's a great tool, and everything I've done, I was able to do it. Yes, I've shown you like the paid version, but everything I've done, I was able to do it with the free version. And this is honestly like 10% of what you can do. There's a lot of things you can do with that command line, so it allows you to bring this into your line. So regardless of what you're using, and be able to get visibility on what's going on. Uh, the links, I'll do the same thing as Mathieu. Mathieu shared PDF with this presentation. I'll be able to share the links also in there. Nicolas, also if you have like link to share, just share them over, and then I will just bundle everything up and put it in our in the recording of the demo. So yep. So need to wrap things up. We're like 4 minutes over. I'm gonna blame Nicholas for that. Yeah, you're the only one left, so sorry. But I have a tendency to like to talk a lot. So, but yeah, so I'm just talking about like future events. Like of course, like Q2 is coming at the end of the week. So we already have like 2 events planned, which is rare. We're like doing it kind of live. Um, so yeah, thanks, Marc-Antoine, for the thumbs up in the chat. So yeah, so we have 2 events. So we have one already scheduled. It's not yet in the calendar. I wanted this one to pass, but at the end of April, we'll have GCP security controls in action. It's going to be done by two of our friends from RBC. So it's actually customers showing things, which I love. Like if anyone out there actually wants to show what they're doing with GCP, I would love to see it and be able to showcase it during one of our events. And we have another one planned in May, which is like serverless end-to-end, a journey from code to delivery and day two ops. That's going to be with our good friend David Sanders, who's going to come back for, I think it's going to be a third time. It's to our GDG. Always nice to have him over. And if you ever want to submit a talk, scan the QR code. You'll be able to just say, hey, would like to present this. We'll get a notification and get back to you. Of course, we have our public Slack channel, so feel free to join in on the conversation. Also, you'll get notified of new events in there, but if you're already registered to the GDG page, you're already getting those notifications too. And yeah, so I just want to wrap things up. Thanks everybody. We're 6 over, but I think it was worth it. Thanks, Nicholas, for your time today. Um, kind of like just like lifting the veil on FinOps. Just there's so much to talk about, but for everybody, is giving you an idea of where so maybe that could be interesting. And it's an entire world on its own. So and there's also a FinOps foundation, so you can go there and look their certification. There's many things. So yeah, so if you have the time, you can just go and give us a little thumbs up or thumbs down, stuff you want to see coming, talking on the survey page. So
Thank you for having me, Stacy, and thanks everyone.
it's a pleasure, Nicholas. We'll happy to have you again when you have another topic. We'll go over it. So again, like thanks everybody, and well, we'll see you at the end. Well, I start of Q2 at the end of April for our next event. Thanks everyone.